From the songs we sing to the fears we face, we find our strength in shared embrace. Voices rising, hearts awake, through every moment the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start, healing the world, one open heart. Every voice, a story told, through the new, through the old. Bound by love, the ties that bind, in every struggle hope will find. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start, healing the world, one open heart. One open heart. So speak your truth and light the way. Through darkest nights we'll find the day. Courage to converse until we're free. A better world for you and shadows deep, where silence grows, a spark ignites, a courage shows. We break the chains, the walls we climb, together we can redefine. Voices rising, hearts awake, through every moment the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start, healing the world, one open heart. From the battles fought to the words unsaid, through heavy burdens, the paths we tread. From the songs we sing to the fears we face, we find our strength in shared embrace. Voices rising, hearts awake, through every moment the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start, healing the world, one open heart. An open heart. From the battles fought to the words unsaid, through heavy burdens, the paths we tread. From the songs we sing to the fears we face, we find our strength in shared embrace. Voices rising, hearts awake, through every moment the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire, transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start, healing the world, one open heart. darkest nights will find the day. Courage to converse until we're free. A better world for you and me. In shadows deep where silence grows, a spark ignites, a courage shows. We break the chains, the walls we climb. Together we can redefine. Voices rising, hearts awake. Through every moment, the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire. Transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start. Healing the world, one open heart. From the battles fought to the words unsaid, through heavy burdens, the paths we tread. From the songs we sing to the fears we face, we find our strength in shared embrace. Voices rising, hearts awake. Through every moment, the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire. Transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start. Healing the world, one open heart. An open heart. From the battles fought to the words unsaid, through heavy burdens, the paths we tread. From the songs we sing to the fears we face, we find our strength in shared embrace. Voices rising, hearts awake. Through every moment, the steps we take. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire. Transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start. Healing the world, one open heart. Every voice, a story told. Through the new, through the old. Bound by love, the ties that bind. In every struggle, hope will find. Discuss the pain, reflect the fire. Transform the dark, lift each heart higher. Courage to converse, a bridge to start. Healing the world, one open heart. An open heart. So speak your truth and light the way. Through darkest nights we'll find the day. Courage to converse until we're free. A better world for you and
All right. Hopefully we're live. Hopefully everybody can hear us. Can y'all hear us on there? I'm going to go ahead and add. Uh, hey, there he is. Look at that. It actually worked pretty well. Well, yeah, I guess it's hopefully and add. All right, Jonathan, can you hear me? All right, let's do this. Can y'all hear him?
So let's say, I guess one of us might be before we hear him. I don't know what the delay is though.
Yeah, there is a delay. Give it a try now.
Test, test, test.
All right, I see the movement on the screen at this point. I'm turning off those captions because they look like they're annoying.
Hello.
L-I.
LA's on?
L-I.
In the house.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I think y'all should be able to hear him now. Go ahead and give us a sound check.
Test,
Actually, it has
test,
to be
test, 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 test.
Years and years of that people.
Check, check, check.
Yep, think you're good.
Right on.
All right, so this is going to be the first episode of Courage to Converse. This forum is intended to be an open and honest conversation about sometimes many uncomfortable topics, right? This first inaugural episode is going to be talking about men's mental health and the stigma that tends to be held around men's mental health. And, you know, we're not allowed to talk about our feelings and our emotions because we're men. We're just supposed to suck it up and move on, shut up and color, some may say. Um, so we're here to just be honest with each other, honest about who we are, where we've come from, where we're trying to be in life. Um, I'm going to introduce a few folks here that I have. My name is Joe Lyric. This has been something I've been talking about doing for probably 2, 3 years now. But I got tired of talking about it, so here I am. Online, I have Jonathan Perry, the Psychotic Circus of Savannah. If you want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where you gone? Where you been?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, like you said, I run the Psychotic Circus of Savannah, which is a haunt outside of Dallas, Texas, as well as a YouTube channel and a TikTok channel, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things that you fill in. And one thing that meeting you, Joseph, that we had in common was the love for Halloween, and also the love for going on a mission of positive mental health. And so thank you for having me on the platform, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Um, Tanya, if you want to introduce yourself, and then we'll go along from you over to Dakota.
Sure. My name is Tanya Copperthwaite. I am not a counselor. I am a psychiatric rehabilitation practitioner, but most importantly, I'm a certified peer specialist, which means I myself have been in recovery for mental health since February 20th of 2017. From use of all drugs, I was on the streets. Definitely can still struggle with my mental health, but helping others. And I actually make a living by doing that. Also a grant writer, so the funds are covered, of course. But needless to say, I'm here to add some education and knowledge, maybe, but most importantly, experience for sure.
Thank you, ma'am. Jojo?
My name's Jody McGay. I go by JoJo. I am the actor coordinator, volunteer coordinator here. I've also been clean and sober. It's been 14 years now. So in New Jersey, I definitely did all my hard work with counseling for drug and alcohol. All I want to do is put a man's perspective. On my end, though, I have the gay male side, so it might be a little easier for me to translate some of that information too, because there's stigma surrounding that as well.
Absolutely. Where there shouldn't be.
Right.
All right, and Dakota.
I'm Dakota Sawyer. My haunt character is Smiley. I'm the lead makeup artist and SFX person here at the haunt. I don't have any special titles like that, but I've definitely been through my fair share of things. And I'm just an advocate for mental health and all that through because I've been around people with issues, alcoholics, stuff like that. And I battle my own demons and stuff like that. So, my goal is to talk through it, get through it with that. Part of what makes Smiley is what I go through, and that's part of the backstory behind him if you read in between the lines. So that's what I'm here for.
Appreciate y'all.
Awesome.
So, does anybody want to say anything before we get started? For anybody? Because if not, we're just going to jump right in.
We need to make this public
Yeah.
on the next go round.
Is it not public right now?
You know, it's on your friends.
It's friends only.
Friends only viewer. My bad. Last minute stuff. Yes, we will make this public next time for sure. It'll be on YouTube next time.
Right.
Right.
So we were supposed to be on YouTube initially. When I was testing this all out, I did it on another YouTube channel, and it let me go live, but I had more followers and stuff. This is a new YouTube channel that I started, Courage to Converse, and you need more followers, and you had to set settings, and I didn't get it done in time. So that's my bad, poor planning on my part. But look, we're here, right? We're having the conversation. We adapted. We're live on Facebook tonight. We will try to get this saved off and uploaded to the YouTube channel, but next time we will be on the YouTube going live and everything like that.
Is it?
So
Can you change it to the public for Facebook? For that one?
I'm looking. I don't want to end anything.
It may have to be started that way.
Yeah, I'm thinking unpublished after live stream key. Advanced settings. Stream. Yeah, there's no setting on here to do that.
Okay.
So, all right. So as we mentioned, this episode is going to be about men's mental health and the stigma behind men and their emotions and their feelings. And um, some people would say men just need to suck it up and move on. But there is a stigma around us as men being able to vocalize how we feel, why we feel the way we do. Um, and I just want to open up the conversations and, see what everybody feels about that. What have you been told growing up? What have you yourself told other people about being a man and just moving on with things? Um, and some of the things that we have to deal with as a man, as a father, as a son, as a grandfather, as a friend, and what it takes to be a real man in this world today. So, Jonathan, I want to open it up to you to see what do you feel about you know, be a man, suck it up, move on. What have you been told throughout your life growing up and these days?
Well, I think what I was told growing up versus what I tell people is drastically different, right? When you're told, or at least I was told growing up, like we've all heard the term "man up," as if for some reason, if you have any kind of feeling or emotion, you're being told to shut that away and do what's expected of you, whether you emotionally, physically, fill in the blank, feel like for some reason you can't do your best job. It's just shut up and do it anyway, right? And I'm 41 years old. That's a kind of a lesson that has been attempted to be instilled into me since I was a little kid. And to a degree, I agree with it, but at the same time, it's like, look, um, realistically, we have these pressures that are put onto us that nobody will ever be able to actually do. The expectations are just sometimes too high for anybody to feel confident in what they do all the time, and that has nothing to do with being an alpha male and being a beta male and or any of that stuff. It has everything to do with we get a lot put on our shoulders in comparison to other demographics, and I think that platforms like this where folks can just say, hey, look, I'm a male, I'm a dude, this is what I do, but I'm still a human being at the end of the day, right? And I mean, Joe, you were in the car with me one time, and I hate to kind of go off on a tangent, but you and I were in the car one time where somebody had contacted me through our YouTube channel that was suicidal. And you heard how I took that conversation with that individual, which, no offense to you at that time, and my wife was in the car as well, but it was like, hey guys, I got to put that on pause because I'm going to be here for this young man, hoping that someday he'll be able to be there for another person. I never really thought about, when I talk about mental health on my platform, how important it is to young males. I've always just thought about it as how important it is to people in general, but The suicide rate for males is higher than it is for females, and I think a lot of it has to do with that lesson that was kind of ingrained in me at a young age of just shut up and do your job, right?
Yeah, I remember that time in the car actually, and I gave you props for that, because you're just this random guy on YouTube, reaching out to people, doing what you do, what you love, right? And people are looking up to you, some random stranger from across the world, and they look up to you, they're calling you, and you just gives them straight advice, like this is what I'm telling them, or they're telling me, and I can enact my life on them, things I've done, and how it can relay into their life, and it's cool to see that type of thing. Again, he's a random guy on YouTube, and he has this type of impact on people's life. Um,
Yeah, and I think it's also it's brought. I have a very small circle of people that I consider to be. It's like a stronger bond than a friend, right? And the males that are in that circle, those are the guys that I still, I'll check in from, just like you and I do, Joe. We'll check in with each other every now and then. There doesn't have to be some kind of flag for me to reach out to someone and say, "Hey, I love you, man. Is everything good? I'm here for you." And we might not talk for a month and a half, and then we might talk every day for a week, right? But it's really, one of the things I've wanted to do since kind of putting myself out there in the open with all of this is like break down that stigma of, for some reason, as men, we're not allowed to tell each other that we love each other, or that we'll be here for each other, or that we're weak at a particular time, or hey, I need you right now. You know what I mean? And the relationship I have with you, the relationship I have with, again, a small circle of other individuals, is that I know I can rely on them, and I want people to know that they can rely on me. I don't necessarily have to know them to help somebody out, And then when you think about mental health, think of it like any other part of a body. If my brain is fractured at this point in time, if I saw you running down the street and your leg was broken, I'm going to stop and see, hey, man, are you all right? There's no reason why
leave him
we
alone.
should all
He's
be
okay.
able to do that
He can handle it on
when it comes.
himself, right?
Right, right. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to talk about this. I would much rather have somebody reach out to me instead of feeling alone and doing something that they can't take back.
Right. All right. So I want to open up to the two males. No offense, Tanya. In your life, what have you been told, as a man, your feelings and all that? You mentioned you have the gay side of it and everything like that. How has that impacted you from a personal perspective, and has that held you back from pursuing anything, or how you interact with others?
Well, growing up, like for the longest time, I didn't accept myself for the longest time. So I had what, seven uncles on my dad's side of the family, and there was no gay men. No one ever talked about that.
Right.
And the whole male macho stuff was always around. It's, you're a man, you got a boo boo, you broke a finger, you broke a this or whatever. You just suck it up, buttercup, and move on,
Right.
and everything like that. You're not keeping it moving. It's a problem, and you're a sissy boy and all this other stuff. Um, but I would not accept myself because I kept telling myself for the rest of my life, I'm either going to be alone. I'm never going to get married to a woman. I'm not going to have children and everything like that. And when I was younger, it was unheard of that gay men were adopting and, had
Right.
meaningful, marriages and things like that. So I didn't really have any kind of idol to like look at. So my grandfather was my dad because my father worked all the time. That's who taught me how to throw the baseball, how to kick the soccer ball, throw the football, and all that stuff. When he passed away, a part of me was gone because he never said things like that to me. I was allowed to feel what I felt.
Right.
If this hurt, he wanted me to tell him, things like that. Um, when he was gone, everything changed again. And I was in high school at that time. So I was struggling with my sexuality at that time too. So I did the prom thing, I had the girlfriends, and I did, and I put myself in positions that I shouldn't have. I'm sleeping with people, obviously protected and everything like that, but to pacify a world that where I lived, it was so conservative, it was all farms and everything like that. There were no
Right.
mentions of anyone gay, even
Right.
in my high school or anything like that. So it was difficult, but once I got in touch with myself through counseling and everything like that and learned I'm allowed to be who I am and live my life my way.
Right.
I'm not effeminate. So I have where I can be in touch with mine. I cry when I'm ready.
Right.
You know what I mean? Certain things will make it come out and stuff like that, but I'm not afraid to in
Right.
front of anyone else. My fear is I won't stop because I don't do it
Yeah.
often enough to cleanse, to
Right.
let it out.
Yep.
And I don't reach out, even to my own husband. I don't reach out to him and say, look, I'm not in a good place
Why do you think that is, though?
because he doesn't relate the same ways.
Mm-hmm.
And he was raised the same way where everything he did with
Right.
adoption and everything like that, everything he did was wrong
Mm-hmm.
his whole life. So anything that he does, he swears is wrong. So when I bring anything to the table to him, he automatically thinks it's his
His
fault.
fault. Yep.
So, and
I
I'm
see that from him.
constantly having to reassure that, so I don't have enough of an opportunity to let that out. But being around you and everyone here in the haunt and your brother, like to be able to open up now,
Right.
it's made my life 10 times easier
Right.
than it was when I was living in Alabama because I was stressed 24 hours a day.
Stress will kill you.
Yeah.
Mentally, emotionally, physically, in all kinds of ways. So I appreciate that. Well, the man up and all that stuff, was it mostly on your side because of the gay stuff, or was it because
That's just how
you're
all
just
the
you're
men
just a
work.
man?
That's how all the
All the
men
men
work.
were.
Yep.
Yep.
And I had to learn to work. And like you work for everything.
Mhm.
And it's not gonna be in an office and things like that. It's work.
Right.
You're gonna get out there and bust your knuckles up and everything like that. That's how you earn your money.
Right.
And that's what I've done my whole life.
Right.
So
How about you, Dakota?
So growing up, I mean, I kind of learned the whole be a man thing through family. Most men in my family are very, um, I don't want to say independent, but the typical man got to work, make the bread, go home. That's it. Don't show emotion, stuff like that.
Right.
So starting out, that's kind of what I learned at the beginning of my youth. Just because that's what I saw my dad do and all that. It's what I saw my grandparents do. They didn't really talk about much. It was uh, work, move on with life, get through stuff. Ain't got time for anything else. And to a point, I was very thankful for that because that taught me my work ethic.
Right.
But at the same time, I started realizing it's killing me too because I'm just working through the emotions, not talking about it or anything like that. And then I hit a critical point with the whole man thing too. So it gets complicated with me learning to be a man and all that. Because my parents divorced when I was in my teenage years,
Right.
prime time years of learning how to be a man.
Yep.
And I don't know, I'm going to get too much into this, but like at a point, I lost my connection with my dad.
It's all good, brother. It's all good.
Sorry.
You're good.
um, where the divorce hit him, it hit everybody, but he just kind of checked out on me. So I don't. luckily I had a stepdad come in and all that and showed me things, but there's a lot I missed out
Mhm.
that I'm struggling with today. So, and again, for my stepdad and all that, great guy. Similar thing, he taught me how to do things, the basic man stuff, car stuff, whatever,
Right.
take care of your family. But I was still lacking that, showing affection, stuff like that. And then with the divorce and all that, I was craving that a lot.
Right.
And I just got shut down, turned off, whatever. And, it just tore me up.
Right.
But I was taught and raised, be a man. Just you can't have those feelings. You got to get through life, and that's just how I
Keep
moved
on
on.
keeping on, no matter what.
That's how I kept moving on.
Gotta keep piling on.
Yeah, and here we are. 15 years later, I'm going through therapy and stuff like that. But at the start, I was just be a man. Can't talk about it. You got life to worry about.
Right.
Ain't got time for feelings, so it sucks. But and when you try to express it or whatever, especially when I started trying to reconnect with my dad, I just got shut down. My grandfather, same thing. Excuse my language, he's a total ass. He called me a failure at one point just because I was a manager at a fast food joint. So
Are you happy?
I am happy. So, but he was that kind of man guy. Yeah. He was that type of man guy. Like if you weren't top level notch,
Mhm.
doing, being top of your game at the youngest or whatever,
Right. You ain't first, you're last.
Yeah. So, and that's just what I grew up with. And then like now just trying to express myself and show it is just, I struggle with it. And, as you just said at the beginning, men, we're trying to get to that point where it's okay for us to express it because, it takes a toll on us that we don't share about. A few years ago, I got in a dark spot and some of my close friends picked up on the trigger
Mhm.
and they stopped me. So, and that's when I started doing therapy and
Right.
learning to be a man and all that. So,
Right. I appreciate that, man. I know it's
sorry,
hard.
I didn't.
No, there's no. Don't be sorry. That's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Because I felt that pressure for so many years. Personally, myself, you're a dad, you're a husband, you're this, you're that. Everybody's like, oh, you could do this, you could do this. How do you handle the pressure? Well, I deal with it. I put a smile on my face, but inside, I'm hurting. Myself, a few years ago, I had a breaking point, and because of Amanda, I strongly believe that I'm here because the I was going on a business trip and I had a gun with me, and she stopped me. I was done. I was done. I wanted to be done with life. I wanted to be done with her. I wanted to be done with everything. And at that point, even though I know I would be not here anymore, I couldn't live with myself knowing my kids would be without a father. So at that point is when I started to seek counseling, and it was at that point where this type of thing, I'm tired of holding in my personal emotions and my feelings. I talked to my counselor, and Amanda and I actually both went through counseling at the time because to fix us, we had to fix ourselves first. And you'll hear that from a lot of people, and I truly, firmly believe that. Um, if you can't be vulnerable enough to talk to somebody about it, how are you going to talk to about your spouse? So if I'm holding something in and I keep holding it in, the next thing I hold in, that's just more weight piled on my shoulders. I don't care how strong anybody is, everybody has a breaking point, no matter what they say. Um, and the inner circle of our friends and everything is what's going to keep us all, holding our feet to the fire, making sure we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever that may be. My brother and I, we got this thing we call iron sharpens iron. You can refer it back to a Bible verse, however you want, but in the end, what it means is iron sharpens iron. We as men to women, we are here to build each other up, make each other stronger. Um, And we can't do that if we're not talking about things. You got to get to know each other on a personal level, know what they're going through, how they're doing. I reached out to Jonathan a few times, and that he had a lot going on. Just let him know, hey man, I'm here for you. I met this guy one time physically at East Coast Haunt Convention, right? But he's from San Diego. You're 30, 42,
41.
Man, went from
41.
30 to 40.
Yeah, I'm 41. We're like literally the same age. We're like, he's from San Diego. I'm from San Bernardino. We're like an hour and a half away from each other. Like, we clicked. Well, I felt I clicked. I was like, kind of like you. I fanboyed over you. I fanboyed over him because he was like he did the haunt stuff, the home haunt, and just a brother from another mother almost. But I didn't even meet him until East Coast, right? This dude came and
Right.
picked me up. We went on a haunt tour together, and we hung out with him. It was cool. But I could tell something wasn't right with him. He didn't tell me much. Um, but then he finally started opening up, and then he went on YouTube. Was it last week? Last Sunday? And I didn't watch it for a few days because he hadn't been on live for a while. I was religiously watching his YouTubes, right?
Yeah,
So
I
I just
used to do it once a week and didn't do it for like 4 months
right,
while I was going through this transitional period, I
right,
guess you could say.
yep. You can call it whatever you want, brother. But yeah, I knew something wasn't right. But that doesn't mean I can't reach out and check on him. Hey
Right.
man, what's going on? Because his stickers and stuff. Like I got a sticker here, these pins. Like we share stuff like that back and forth. Hey, did this, and this dude he connects up with Lowe's and uh, Party City and all these places. He's got connections and stuff. So he just shares that information, and it's a connection through a mutual interest. You know what I mean? But I don't know why I went down that road, but the whole thing about the manly, you know, you're man, hold it, you're strong, you're supposed to be, doesn't mean we need to do it anymore. That's what I'm trying to
What
break.
you
So
know, and one thing I want to say is kind of just to piggyback off of that a little bit. And I know that Tanya's still kicking it there, and we got to get to her too. But
yeah,
um, uh, it's funny when I'm saying funny in a lack of better term I can think right now, but I think that with all the pressure that we all have, even if you don't have kids, even if you aren't a father yet, but you know that these type of pressures are going to be put onto you by family, by friends, by society, these expectations that are just unrealistic to be perfect, yet you know that so many people are going to rely on you some point in time. You know that you're going to have a partner that's going to look at you as being a leader. You know that you're going to have friends that look at you as being just as strong as for them and for yourself as they are. Like there's so much of this pressure, and I think a lot of this comes from we beat ourselves up because we're trying to live up to this unrealistic expectation, right? Or at least that's what I've noticed about myself is a lot of this comes from me doubting myself. I will give everybody else in the world so much grace if they make a mistake, but if I was to make that same mistake or a mistake that's even smaller, it's almost the end of the world for me,
you're
and I have
kicking
to
your own
bottle
ass
it up.
in the end.
Right.
Yep.
And you have to bottle it up. You're not allowed, finger quotes, air quotes for folks that may just be listening, you're not allowed to express that, hey, I, I, I fell flat, and have somebody say, no, you just made a mistake, dude. It's all right. Let's keep rolling. Right. And that's not even, that's the top level of the mental health for men iceberg. I feel that we could really dive down, anxiety and depression and, fill in the blank, fill in the blank, fill in the blank. But one thing I was saying that I noticed was funny is that, and Joe, you haven't really talked about your background much just yet, and if you don't want to, that's completely fine. But one of the things I've noticed is that we all seem to have a point in our life where we don't have the tightest and most emotionally available relationship with the men in our lives from when we were growing up. Right. My father and my mom, they got divorced when I was 3 months old, and I didn't meet my father until I was 20. So I was raised by my mom and my older brother, and I didn't have that. I mean, I don't know about you guys who have older brothers. There's not a lot of time that you can be open with them about how you're feeling, right? And to have uncle,
Not
I
at a
had
younger
uncles.
age. Now I can 100%.
Yeah, not
At
at
a
the
younger
younger
age,
age.
absolutely not.
If you think about they say your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. Well, none of us are mature enough to even have a conversation about how we feel up until around that time. Where we don't have to worry about being judged, especially by a male. You know what I mean? So that's why I try to do this with some of our followers that are younger, is to let them know, like, it's okay to be vulnerable in front of another male. But it's actually better for you and better for that other person for you to embrace and dive headfirst into that vulnerability. Right, bottling it up, it's not going to, it's just a ticking time bomb at that point.
Right. So I want to get to Tanya now. I know you've been sitting there. I apologize. So just so everybody knows, are they? I'll get them up in a little bit. The audio's only playing through this little headset I got here. They can't hear what Jonathan's saying until it plays to the phone over here. So they're trying to catch up with the conversation. I got a poor setup. My first time, I'm sorry. It'll be better next time, I swear. So Tanya, from your side, you hear the things that we've been talking about and everything. Do you see men struggling more than women with some of these things? Or is it like a shared thing, or what have you seen?
I definitely see men more. But the interesting thing though is, so the name of our private practice is RAMP, Results Anger Management Program. Now, I don't specialize in just anger. However, that's often what I see the most of. But anger is a secondary emotion. So if someone just mentioned an iceberg, it is like an iceberg if you picture that. You see the anger on the top, however, it's covering the hurt, the disappointment, often shame. Shame is a very big thing. Brene Brown actually is one of my favorite authors, and she writes about it and studies a lot. So I definitely see a lot more men. I have contracts for probation and defects for domestic violence and things and battery. But the interesting thing is, I get way more resilience and way more change out of men. I don't know if it's because of the consequences that are so vital. The consequences can be so tough, and I definitely see women. I have a transitional home for women. There's 28 women that I work with that are from the streets. I myself was in the streets and lost my children, lost everything. And so, but anyway, yes, I see it a lot more with men. I think the interesting thing though is also to be able to define what it is exactly that you feel. We know happy, mad, sad, and fear. But being able to define, okay, you're angry, but are you betrayed? And if that's the word, so we use what's called a feelings wheel. If that's the word that's used, being able to define why you feel betrayed and using what we would call cognitive distortions, catastrophizing, being able to basically call it bullshit. Basically call it bullshit and being able, so feelings are not facts. Our feelings can lead to thoughts. And listen, feelings are valid. We can definitely, I feel so in love sometimes, but I'm so loved, right?
Right.
That comes from childhood trauma. That comes from a familiar and unfortunately, even at times, still unbelievably comfortable feeling because it's all I knew for so long.
Right.
But being able to catch that and catch the thoughts that come from that. Feelings are not facts. They are only temporary, thank goodness. But being able to catch the thought, call it bullcrap, therefore change the reaction to it. So, and that helps through cognitive distortions and being able to help men and women, but what is it exactly that you feel?
Right.
And why? And then being able to dig. It does often go back to childhood trauma. We all have some form of trauma, and that trauma doesn't ever go anywhere. It's always a part of us. However, we can damn sure change some perspectives of it sometimes and process it and kind of move from it. But listen, I've gone through so much counseling, so much inpatient, outpatient, aftercare rehabs, there's still days. My life is beautiful today. I mean, it's so beautiful, but my husband is wonderful. He's in recovery. But we were trucking on along and our 23-year-old son killed himself, shit still happens. And we can have days where we just go back to bed.
Right.
We watch some Cat Williams or put on something funny and wait, try it again tomorrow.
Right.
But being able to define that and figure out what is it exactly that you feel. But oftentimes I see it in anger. For sure.
Right.
Anger or addiction, some kind of self-inflicted violence, whether it be cutting, addiction, drugs, alcohol, punching walls. I call it self-inflicted violence because if I wasn't cutting myself, I was using. If not, I'm punching, I'm fighting. It's all
Right.
under the same umbrella.
You mentioned, the assessment or, the feelings and everything. I've been referencing that since you told me that with Landon, actually. You get all your emotions, and everything, get it all out there, the virtual cards out there to start picking out the facts of these things, right? Yeah, you feel this, you feel that, but what's the reality of it? Why do you feel this way? And I've been trying to do that myself as well because I struggle with it. I'm angry because of this, and this. But then you start picking those virtual cards out of what's actually going on. Why am I feeling this way?
Sure.
So,
And it's probably crap.
right. A lot of it is.
A lot of it is.
So since I've gone to my counseling, I've learned to pick my battles, choose my battles. You hear that your whole life. Choose your battles, pick your battles. Well, I'm calling my crazy meds. I take some Lexapro now because the counselor recommended I get on it, and it's helped me tremendously to be able to choose my battles. Yes.
There, I hate.
There was one time recently, Matt actually said, "Did you take your meds?" I'm like, "Really? Am I getting that bad?" So, yeah, but you know,
And they help.
they do. Oh,
And it's
100%. I'm way well. It helps me. It kind of goes into the next segue. Is they help me choose my battles, right, and identifying what my problems are versus what the other people's problems are, right? Sometimes those weights we put on ourselves, right, can be other people's problems actually, but we're trying to be there for them and help them and all that, when really they let them know we're there, but we don't have to try to solve those problems for them. We don't have to take on that weight ourselves and, take it away from them.
Right.
So,
Right.
I think even with like getting, that's like for me for the longest time, because with the divorce at a young age and all that, like the judge ordered therapy I had to go through as a kid and all that, which was not fun at all. But like even during then, they were talking about putting me on, you know, at the time as a kid, it's the happy pills.
mhm,
But I think even with that, that's still part of the stigma with men is like even just doing that step is like you feel like because for me, I did not want to get on pills at all. Just bad stigma with them, the manhood of if you're on those, you fucked up, like you messed up, you're not a man anymore. So I think part of that issue is built in with the whole man thing, and I just tell people all the time, like I used to be part of that, but now it does help me.
right,
So I think that's just another part of the issue is that's one of the steps of men being okay and accepting,
right.
that's part of the help to get us to where we're going.
I was against meds, like completely, but to the point where I was down here, it's worth. In the end, I say fuck them all, everybody, because just because I'm on meds and makes me help, it doesn't mean it's you have to do it. But don't damn me
Right.
because I have to. I'm doing it. It
Right.
helps me. Without it,
Well,
it's very, 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 very hard for me. You know what I mean?
It's
one of
funny.
the
People
things
know
that I
I'm working
worried
with them,
about
obviously, and I
with
tell
getting
people all
on
the time,
meds
if they're on
was
Hold on one
medication.
second,
that.
Jonathan. Hold
Oh,
on one
sorry
second.
about that.
Go ahead.
Here, I'm so
No,
sorry.
you're good. Go ahead.
They'll say, well, I'm doing better, and so I'm going to come off my medicine, right? So recently, about 2 months ago, I said, you know what? My husband and I both were on the lowest dose of Zoloft, and I was like, you know what? We were running out of refills. I'm just going to come up. Oh no, no, no! About a month later, even though my life today is so beautiful, like seriously, if I sat long enough, I would definitely go down the rabbit hole, and I seriously could have had suicidal ideations. I just didn't want to be, and I was like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Like,
Right.
I was fully aware, so I was called my doctor and I was headed to the doctor, and my husband texted me and said, I have to get back on my meds. And so I called him. I said, are you okay? He said, why does everything have to have a response? We're just better, and that's okay. It's an SSRI. We have an amygdala in the middle of our neocortex. Some of it fires, and the reason I know that mental illness is real, my life is beautiful,
Right.
and I could have wanted to kill myself a couple
Right.
of months ago. Why? Because I have a mental health condition. I have a mental illness, so it's okay.
Right.
I'm much better on my solo.
Right. And you do have a beautiful family, actually. Tanya's family, her daughters are part of our haunt and part of our nonprofit. Delaney, she came in as an actor, and she was hardcore about wanting to act, but then she realized she didn't really want to act. She was too nervous and everything. However, that girl is going to be a natural leader. She is a natural leader. The things that she's doing with her mom and she's got this thing called the corner that she's started up, and she's getting all these young girls together to talk about these types of things together, right? Build each other up. Um, and she's the confidence that she's building, like it is amazing to see, so what were you going to say, Jonathan? Sorry about that.
Oh, it's all right. The only reason I kept talking, I guess, is the audio delay and all that. But um, what I was saying is that for me, because I take a daily pill as well, and it took a very, 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 very long time for me to say, "Hey, I'm going to do this." And part of it was that I was worried that there was a stigma of even admitting to myself that I had mental illness, right? That and again, it's probably being a man and how we were raised, that it's like, hey, if you're on meds, that means you're crazy. And if you're crazy, that means that you can never make a valid point ever again. If you ever did or said anything, even if it was right, somebody else could say, you're medicated, you don't know what you're talking about. And so for me, it was having to pretend and have a mask on, even though I so desperately actually needed medication at the time. And then I've actually taken it another step as well, which has been a huge help in my life, is not just doing my medication, but I also do it's called transcranial magnetic stimulation, and I do that every morning, 6 days a week. And I guess that's more. It helps with your um, processing speeds for anxiety and depression, as among other things as well, addiction and things of that nature. And at this point, it's almost like I look at it as my Superman shield, right? Like the S on my chest. Like I look forward to the days that I get to um, have this procedure done on me every day, because I know that 99% of the time that I go through there and I do this and I'm getting up every day and having this whole routine that I go through, I've noticed some real effects in how I deal with anxiety and depression and just mental illness altogether. Um, so it's interesting to hear, Joe, that you said that you were so against medication at one time, because I think that's another thing that men, and it could be everybody, but I'm just speaking on a man's point of view, that men feel like, hey, if I need help and I get on medication, for some reason it makes me less of a man, less human.
Some people make it out to be that way, though. I mean, I was honestly one of them. I did not want my son on meds years ago when teachers and stuff were saying things, because I'm like, he needs to learn how to deal with it. And you get to the point where you're like, the teachers just don't want to deal with their behaviors and all that stuff. I didn't, because some of the meds will change people as well, you know.
Right,
Um, but personally, for the meds I'm on, I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to make sure I wasn't going to do myself in.
right,
It didn't matter if it changed me. Maybe that's what I needed. Um, so
right. And the thing
Well,
is
Nick
like,
had
what?
brought up an interesting point too. With why would I go to therapy? Why would I talk to a therapist about things in my world that I wouldn't go to a close friend or a family member? Well, you're totally, yes, you're opening yourself up, but you're opening yourself up to someone that can't judge your life the way that your family will.
right,
So it's going to be easier to open up to that individual. It takes time for you to literally open up to a stranger in that setting as well. If the therapist is effective, it it
Right,
will be known immediately that it's a safe space that you can open up and let that stuff out. But that's where you that's where it's needed. Just like medication, there are individuals who can make it through effectively with just therapy and not need medication.
right,
Absolutely.
And that's even
Right.
very big in drug and alcohol too.
right.
You know, Because the problem with medicating with drugs and alcohol is now we're dealing with dual diagnosis issues.
Right.
So now we have to maintain a medication schedule
Mhm.
with an addictive personality. It becomes very, very challenging at that.
Absolutely.
But therapy is definitely crucial.
The opening up to family members and stuff like that. A
Yeah,
lot of
how
people
fast do you
will
get shut
judge.
down? Yeah.
It's not shut down. Some will shut down, but they hold it against you. They talk about you behind your back because the things you talked about to them, you start hearing about from other people. So it's a fear in me personally, anyways, that I don't want to talk to certain people because I know they're going to run their mouth. Because I came to you in confidence, and I know I only told you, but now I'm hearing it over here, and that's never fun. So,
However, breaking the stigma, it is important to
right.
talk about it. And I know, my brother and I were black sheeps of the family. We were raised by a single mom who did a man's job, and everybody else was married. And so whenever I came out of rehab, I knew the Christmas family dinner, I was going to be the topic, right? And so I told my mom, listen, for the sake of my mental health, I'm not going. Like, and I don't owe you an explanation. I love you, Mom. I'm sorry, but I just can't go. Well, then eventually the next year I went, and so now, of course, yes, I went to rehab. Yes, I have this. Yes, I have that. But now cousins are coming out and coming to me
Mhm.
and needing help.
Right.
So now, because of me going, so what? All right, yeah, I did, and it's been able to bring a lot of the generational bull crap that we've all struggled with because of, we're
Everybody's afraid to talk about it and mention it.
we about it. Yes, he is crazy, but so breaking that stigma, it is important that okay, yeah, right, but
Well, like when you're in a class, this might be a stupid question. The only stupid question are the ones that ask. You're going to ask something that everybody else probably wants to ask, but too scared to do it. It's no different here.
right.
So, all right. So there's a couple questions I have in the layout here. How do you think men's mental health could be improved through community and communication? I think we kind of just dabbled into that a little bit. What do you think? Or I'll take it back this way. Locally, what do you know of that is available to people in the community to help out through these types of things, other than this podcast that we just started?
Is talking about it. A support network is so important, right? Like how we with the hunt come over here and like that's so important. But also having mentorship programs for the young adults and even high schoolers, because it starts really early. But for the big guys like yourselves, just being able to talk about it with each other. This is a good way. There's not enough to answer that question. There's not enough
Right.
ways within our community. But certified peer specialist is something that the DBH, Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities, put out, which means they're paying people in recovery to help others in recovery. So people are actually, like myself, able to make a living and raise their families by, hey, I'm in recovery and this is
Right.
what I do. And there's a lot of men that are doing that now. I've spoke with your brother about
Right.
it, and so that's a great thing that's come about, and that's even grant funded. And so it's little things here and there, not enough. The base, of course, has a resiliency team because Robins Air Force Base years ago was the largest in suicides across the nation. So they have an awesome resilience and CAT team now. So I don't know what would be enough, but we're doing it, and you're doing it by things like this for sure.
We're hoping to break that stigma. What about you? What do you think, other than just doing it like we're doing here? What are some other things, small things? What can you tell, especially the younger folks who might be dealing with some of this stuff? It's a different generation out there, so
Oh yeah. I think we definitely need more engagement. I just moved here, so this area, and I wasn't really that familiar with Alabama either. Where I come from up north, everything you're surrounded by plenty of resources.
Mhm.
I don't know where all of them are. So that's why getting involved with the chamber and everything like that, hopefully we can get our claws into some really good programs, start some mentoring programs, get people involved out here, because that will give us more time to be one on one with individuals. So if they need to dump and they need to talk and they need to get through some things, we can do that stuff
right,
on site here, or we can go places,
right.
you know.
Sometimes people just need a a shoulder to cry on or
Right.
a car ride to go on.
Exactly.
So,
Right.
what
Or
about
just go
you?
have coffee,
Right.
Right.
Anywhere around here.
What do you feel about?
I feel like I'm more groups, like more get together meetups, more involvement with the community is a great step. Just because like doing the haunt stuff, for example, like two of my best friends, I call my brothers. My
Mhm.
brothers are chaos. They're some of the tightest friends I have,
Right.
and we do check up on each other. But it's through that activity, I met people like I met you now, and I'm starting to get a little more open and stuff. More community involvement, just getting out
Right.
helps tremendously. Not being stuck at home. I wouldn't say stuck, but like you know, get yourself out. Like I also help lead a game night and all that. And yes, it's for the fun of doing the games and stuff. But like I've met some great people,
Right.
connections and stuff doing that. So it's just
People probably open up a little more in those environments because they're
yeah,
comfortable, right?
yeah,
They get to know you. That's their comfort zone.
yeah. And then like again, just doing that, like I mean, you get to do a fun activity. Like here at the haunt, you get to do a fun activity, make those connections, and then once those connections are made, you start doing other things with those people
Right.
beyond that, and then that's what helps
Right.
build and iron on iron and stuff like that. You start,
Iron sharpens iron, brother.
yeah,
Iron sharpens iron.
Well, just like what we just did, the
Right.
fireside chats alone.
Oh yeah.
We're breaking walls down. You
Right.
know,
Yep.
it's a free space in nature. We can talk about anything, laugh about anything, act a fool
Yeah. So we had
with
our
each other.
inaugural bonfire this week on the property where we do, or our haunt is on our property, but in the back we have this big bonfire area we just created. We're clearing out for a midway, right, to for the haunt, and it's all going to be burnt tomorrow and the next day, after between now and New Year's. So, but we're out there just talking, bullshitting about different things, and learning to get to know each other a little bit as well.
I think it's really important too for as men, how important and how awesome it is when you simply say me too, right? So like simply standing up in front of I mean not necessarily a crowd, which I do that, but to stand up in front of people and say, you know what, listen, this is what I've struggled with. Like anybody wants to talk about it, it's okay. I used to cut myself so bad. I used to use meth every day all like that's my
Right.
shit. I'm great today. I still think about it. It doesn't mean I want to do it. It's
Right.
just, but just to stand up and say, listen, here's my stuff. If you need to talk about it, and it might not be that day, but eventually, like so many people come to me and are like, man, I felt so alone.
Right.
Well, you're not.
Right.
You're not.
And different people have different approach methods as well. You're open, you got your testimony, which is awesome, by the way. People can approach you. I can approach you and talk to you about anything. Not everybody probably can. One, because you're a woman, or I can't go to a man because he's a man, he's not going to relate, or whatever. You know, you got the gay thing. People can come up to you, they can connect with you because you're gay. You do the gaming thing. I'm just a weirdo. So we all do our own things and we're all approachable in our own ways. And I think the bigger that network can be built, the better and broader net we can cast out there. So one thing that was on my mind, you don't know enough about me yet, Jonathan, but I have a very ADHD mind. Something was on my mind and you guys were talking. I have to talk about it. So as a woman, as a man, anybody, how do you feel when you're sitting around and you're doing nothing and you get in your head? Like, is that a good place to be?
it's so sad.
Yeah. So what have you done personally? What have you found that works for you to make sure you don't get in that point?
I think it's really important to be able to. So I'm a person that burns a candle at both ends of the stick, just like yourself. So I'm constant. But being alone with self is important to be able to meditate and be. But I have a 3 day shelf life. So if I need to isolate, I need to know the difference between isolation and solitude, right? Solitude's healthy, isolation, 3 days, that's a wrap. I got to go to a meeting or something. But at the same time, I have to read a book. I have to do something. But I accept that. People were like, for a long time, they were like, Tanya, you can't just sit still. Like, are you okay with being with you? And I was like, oh shit, I don't know, am I? So I tried, but you know what? That I gotta go. I gotta do stuff. But yes, I can start going down the rabbit hole. But I'm able to catch that today, thank goodness. And hold up, let me call somebody. Hold up, let me, watch something on TV. I never watched. I didn't even own a television before. I actually like watching TV now. I'll get it lost in a game show or something. Or not a game show, shameless. But anyway.
Hold on. What about, let's go back to Jonathan so he doesn't get bored on us here. What do you feel? What do you ever get stuck in your head, sit down, not like, oh, I just need a break, but like sit down and get in your head.
Almost every single day. Almost every single day I do. And so, one of the things that I have an issue with is sleeping, right? I have a problem with staying asleep. I wake up extremely early. Usually my wife is still in bed. I'll jump up, I hop in my jacuzzi tub, and I just zone out. And it can either be where I'm doing it to be distracted and kind of cleanse my mind. Could be my version of meditation, I guess you call it. But also sometimes what will happen is when I do that, depending on my mindset and depending on what's going on, it can spiral into, making a mountain out of a molehill type of situation. And I think that's where it comes, where anxiety comes in. The way that I work is I don't like a lot of surprises in my life. So I'm not ADHD. I try to, I look at multiple angles of how my day, my life can roll out. And then I focus on the steps that I took that would lead me down the bad path or lead me down a beautiful path, right? For me, I've done years of counseling, and at this point, counseling I don't feel works for me because it's just me rehashing the same stuff that is what I do daily anyway, right? Rehashing the stuff that happened to me as a child, rehashing stuff that happened this week, et cetera, et cetera. For me, what I've been able to do is kind of notice my triggers and physically remind myself, verbally say it out loud sometimes of like, this is temporary, dude. This is temporary.
You will get through this. You will get through this.
I mean, I can go grab it right now. I have a thing, a whiteboard next to my mirror that says, you are loved. You are capable of love. Your family chooses to stay with you because they unconditionally love you. Because that's a big thing with me. I feel like I'm not good enough for people to give a shit about, right? But the other thing about it is that, kind of going back to what we were talking about before of what are some things we can do for folks, and especially younger people. One of the things I always say to younger people, especially if they're in that junior high school era, is that they're hiding their emotion and they're hiding everything about themselves because they don't want to stand out in that crowd. But as soon as that small period of time in your life is over, everybody then wants to stand out. And I just remind those young people that, look, you're just ahead of the curve, right? Like what you're doing now, whether it be your style, your music choice, you approaching your mental health, whatever it could be, that causes you to stand out and other people to bully you, pick on you, beat you down, et cetera, et cetera. You're just ahead of the curve, because fast forward to when those people are 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, they're going to wish that they were individuals. Every single person is going to wish that they were more individual than what they were in high school. And, those are the formative years that a lot of us go through a lot of bullshit that lasts decades later. But for me, going back, it was long-winded, but going back, I zone out every single day. Sometimes it's me just playing a video game on my phone. Sometimes it's me diving into YouTube and doing my YouTube thing. I call it a distraction, even though it's not necessarily a distraction. I still deal with the issues. I still try to navigate through those issues. But if I sit there and stew on it only,
You go down.
All that's going to do is continue to tell me, hey, you're a fuck up, right?
Confirm what you're feeling, what you think you feel. Yep.
You created your own toxic echo chamber.
Yep. And it's not a fun place to be. It's not a fun playground. That's for sure.
No.
You mentioned, being individuals and things like that. My kids are their own individuals. My daughter, she's pretty, blonde, cheerleader in school and all that. You think, oh, everybody, but this girl, she's probably going to get very mad at me about for saying this, but this girl farts, this girl burps, this girl crawls on the floor like a dog and meows like a cat. She is her own individual. That's who she is. People love her because of who she is. Some people look at her, she's weird. My son, he's his own individual. He has his own kind of music. He has his own type of taste of clothing and, all that. Sometimes it changes, but that's okay. That's who they are. They're finding out who they are, what they're developing into. And as a dad, I've talked to you a lot about this, Landon and all this stuff, like, oh, he's got to get it together. In the end, I see my kids how they are. They're good kids. They're really good kids. My daughter put me through some hard times, but she's a teenager. I did these things. I just did them and never got caught.
Right.
She did them and got caught, But now,
yeah, so you're actually worse then. That means you were
technically,
sneakier.
I've done a lot worse things than she has actually. So, but she's my baby. I got to watch her, take control of her, and not take control, but take care of her and all that stuff. Yep. And learn that balance because it is a different generation. You know what I mean? But I know my kids are good. They're going to come out and make this world a better place because their hearts are bigger than anybody on this world. So,
And talking about that though,
Yeah,
one of the things with the
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Jonathan.
Oh, okay. I was saying that talking about that, one of the things that I hear from a lot of our younger followers that do reach out, and males and girls, but it is that, like, we've had people say, I wish you were my parents, to my wife and I. And or I don't have, my dad doesn't love me. My dad is this. My mom doesn't love me. My mom is this. And again, I think that goes back to people not knowing how to navigate their mental illnesses, their chemical imbalances, fill in the blanks, and not being able to show that they are vulnerable in front of their own kids. And, I think that luckily your kids have a father figure that is willing to sit down and talk with them. Not everybody has that. Not everybody is set up to have such a great father that is going to say, hey, look, I also made mistakes. I love you anyway. Most of the time it's just, I'm pissed off. Why didn't you do this? Or why did you do this? And so these kids start resenting themselves. And then that turns into teenagers resenting themselves. And that turns into young adults resenting themselves. And then, now next thing you know, the guy's 50 years old and wants to hang himself, right? And or starts that same cycle with his children. And I do think that just us being open and vulnerable, just like you're doing on the podcast, but just doing that in your day-to-day life, doing it with somebody that a stranger you might meet at the grocery store, or a buddy of yours, or a coworker of yours, or a family member of yours you don't always have a super tight connection with, to just check in and say, hey, just checking in on you. Is everything all right? Things like that go a long way. And people need to know that they are not alone.
Right.
And luckily you sounds like you are, there for your kids, active in their lives, and let them know that, hey, you're loved. And it can come from anybody. There was one time I was sitting in front of an airplane. I travel for work a lot.
Right.
I was sitting waiting to board an airplane, and I was just finished having a panic attack. I'm crying. I'm sitting down, contemplating my life. One of these points where I'm like, man, I sure wish that this plane crashes. And this woman walked by, and she said, hey, are you okay? And just her asking that, I told her yes, and kind of just bottled it up. so that she would move along because I didn't know her. But her reaching out and saying that, she has no idea who I am. To this day, she has no idea I'm talking about her right now. But that went a long way of a stranger just reaching out and saying, "Hey, are you all right?"
People care. Yep.
People, I do think majority of people care, and the people who we think don't care, I still think that majority of them care. They just have their own issues
They're
that they
dealing with
have to
their own
go
shit.
Right.
Dude, this is going to go into some other topics I have coming up down the road, actually. Some of it has to do with religion and politics, very touchy subjects, but um,
You sure you want me on this one?
yeah, 100% if you're down. Um, but before we wrap it up, there's a couple things. I want to go through some of these comments. I see Elizabeth, Beth, love you, girl. That's my sister from another mister. That's my best friend, John, back in California. Um, when I left my dad's house, I went and lived with them for a while. They took me in as their own. And, you know, I've been chatting with her. One of the topics that I have coming up is actually because of a post I saw on her Facebook. Um, we'll see how that one goes. Um, Wednesday, I see you're out there. Thanks for joining. LA. Stop being so aggressive. Love you, girl. Um, looks like there's a lot of people out there watching actually, but I appreciate everybody joining. Do y'all have anything final you want to say? You were going to say something actually, yeah.
With the whole emasculation thing, when we're raised that way and we're told you can't express your feelings and everything like that, as we grow up and we're looking to get into relationships, whether it's friendships, a partner, a romantic relationship, and everything like that, it becomes very problematic because men believe that they're not to communicate that way. And then the accusations start and the fights begin where you're not communicating effectively with me. Well, I was never raised to communicate effectively because I was told to stuff this shit down and suck it up, buttercup, and move on. You're supposed to, it's okay to be okay, but it's not okay to not be okay. You have to be okay 24/7. It's your job to take care of your family.
You mentioned earlier picking your battles, right? And although yes, and the way that we pick our battles is for sure checking our thoughts, right? Are these thoughts true? Catch it. I call it catch it, check it, change it. Catch the thought, check it. Is this true? And change it. Feelings are not facts. Recognize the feelings. They are what they are, but just make sure that that thought is correct. But so there's three ways of communication: passive, assertive, and aggressive. So what happens is if we're continuously passive because we're picking our battles, well, if you picture what's that Eiffelheimer sign lab glass, anyway, you can let some of it go, and then but there's going to be a little bit of a resentment. We might keep some of it, and so anyway, what happens is we kind of stack because we're picking our battles, and then when something little might happen, we explode and completely skip assertive and go straight to aggressive. And that's unhealthy. So it's really important. My husband and I, we fought domestic violence to the bone. It was horrible. And I remember a time where we had 2 minutes. You talk for 2 minutes. I talk for 2 minutes. We try to stick to I statements. I feel blank because blank. But being able to, and look, and also recognize sometimes I don't know how I feel, right? I just feel and I'm just going to go to sleep. Like, I don't know. Like, and I don't want to take it out on you or I don't. So recognizing that, but speaking assertively to each other, learning how to speak, find them words, look at the feelings. Well, how do I feel? Is this correct? Otherwise, it could become aggressive. And if it doesn't become aggressive to your partner or your significant other or whomever, it can become aggressive to yourself.
Yep.
Through self medication, through whatever it may be. So, yes.
So you mentioned the whole thing about choosing your battles and it weighs on you and all of that. I think that boils down to exactly why I wanted to start this because that's what it got to. You choose your battles. Even though I tended to be an aggressive person, I did have to choose a lot of battles to fight or not to fight. And then life happened, right? And it got aggressive and I had lost my shit. Um, and it was okay to talk about it. I mentioned, and that brings me back to the point I wanted to mention earlier, being able to decide what my problems are versus what somebody else's problems are. You know, just because someone feels a certain way about me, I can ask them about that. But if what they feel about me is I know is not true, and I let it bother me, that's my problem. You know. But if I don't let it bother them, it continues to bother them, that's their problem.
Right.
Right? No matter, you can do that with everything. And you had an acronym, I have one, ACL. I've talked to you
Yep.
about this. Accept it, change it, believe it. You
Right.
can apply that to everything. I've applied that to my work life. I had an amazing job, making good money, make just really good. But the stress it was causing on me, I had to go apply that ACL concepts. And I'm glad I did because I'm in a much better place now mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Um, it, you can apply that ACL, and that's a topic that actually we have coming up in a few weeks. Actually, um, in the iron sharpens iron thing, how I personally apply these things, right? Um, anything else you want
I
us to
want
talk
to say
about?
something that
Just
for me,
Hold on one second.
um,
keep going.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
okay, the one thing I wanted to say that I've been learning now is, some folks, especially the folks that are dealing with mental illness, we're always told about fight or flight, fight or flight, fight or flight, right? And you were talking about picking your battles. Um, the thing that it took a while for my brain to understand when I would always hear you're in fight or flight mode is that there's also another option. It doesn't just have to be fight, doesn't just have to be flight, even though it says fight or flight. There's also other options, right? There's an option to just not care. There's an option to have a discussion like a civilized adult. There's an option to take a break and reset and come at this discussion if you're happen to be arguing with somebody from a different light, or to put yourself in
We
their
can
shoes.
agree to disagree, right? And still get
You
along.
can agree, and that I think that's my biggest problem is that I have a problem with agreeing to disagree. Right? I have to be able to. I just have to know that I'm being heard. Right? And I think that's where for me it was learning those differences. Is that I would always assume that agreeing to disagreeing it means that that person is not hearing me. Whereas I I just need to, hey, I totally understand where you're coming from, and this is where I'm coming from. To me, that's agreeing to agree that the situation is fucked up, but we care about each other. I got love for you. I hear where you're coming from, and then the ball is now in in my court to make the choices to assure that you don't feel that way, and vice versa. And this could be with friends, parents, your lover, your coworker,
Your
fill in the
kids.
blank, right?
Yep.
Your kids. Um, but the part that I kind of um, choose choosing your battle for me, it's assuming that everything. When I hear that term, and not to knock the way that it's working for you, and that's super dope, but for me that doesn't work because it makes me assume that everything has to be a battle. For someone who's so aggressive, I get aggressive, just like Joe. I know you get aggressive, right? Like for guys like us to say pick your battle means to me, all right, when I'm picking it, it's battle, right?
Someone's about to
It
get
doesn't
knocked
have
out.
to be a fighter, right? It doesn't have to be a fight or flight. It can
Right.
be one of those many other options. And I just
Right.
think that especially the younger folks, the more that they hear that, like, dude, you have a whole canvas of colors to choose from on how you want to deal with the situation. Sometimes it's not going in the way of your instinct. Do you want to control your feelings or your feelings control you?
Right. And
Right. And I think
that's part of that.
once we're able to
Choose it.
go, hey, I want to control my feelings, it changes something in you, which then goes, wow, this works for me. I want to make sure other people feel that.
Right.
You know,
You were going to say something?
Yeah, just kind of going off everybody and kind of listening to him, catching up. Just especially for guys, just be open to talk about things. Um, trying to break that stigmatism because me, I just got divorced within this past year, marital issues and all that, and part of that, at the start of it, I would blame my dad and blame my parents. They went through a divorce and all that. Like I didn't learn, you know, how to be that co-joint unit, proper marriage and all that, because just based on what I saw, that's just what taught me. And part of it, yeah, I mean, you could say it's, they are to blame, but it's not. It's just you have to learn to go through things. Like I'd be the husband that would, like we said with the glass and all that, I'd let things go, let things go, let things go, and then one little thing, snap. And as I'm gotten through the divorce and all that, I've learned to recognize these things and be more talkative about things. So hopefully, and it sucks, it ruined the whole marriage and all that for me. But again, I can't blame anybody. But I need to learn to break that stigma, learn to do better, not versus what we're just told.
Right.
And that way for future relationships, if I choose any, like that, and just to be the single dad I am because I got 2 kids, to be more open to show them,
Right.
that it's okay to be, you know, angry, upset, show your emotions. It's okay to be that way. Just make sure you, like we've discussed, check it,
Talk it through.
talk it through. What's the real?
Don't let your past define your future
Yeah.
either, because that's huge. That can hurt a lot, Your
Yeah,
past from your
just
childhood or your past from your marriage and all that, this doesn't mean that's how it's going to be in the future. What's up?
and just to give you some, I went through a divorce a few years back, and my stepfather told me this, and it helped me get to where I am now. He said to me that every relationship fails until one doesn't. And if you think of that, then it's going to stay. Hopefully you'll start feeling more optimistic about that relationship has passed and you have a whole layout ahead of you for your
Every
future.
relationship fails until one doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. Relationships are horrible odds when you think about it. Every relationship will fail until one doesn't. And that one that doesn't is going to be the one that you're going to be with for the remainder of your life.
I like that.
Right.
Every relationship fails until one doesn't.
Yeah.
Nice.
I've been where you are, brother. I get it. I've been there. It's not easy, and it's not usually not a cheerful thing. I will say it was one of the greatest things that have ever happened to me, both on where I am as a human now, and also where I am as a husband now, who I can be for my partner. I learned the mistakes I made. I learned the mistakes that my ex had made. I learned what to do and what not to do. So, consider it your practice marriage. And, hopefully in the future, everything will be beautiful for you. But just keep that in the back of your head that everyone fails until one doesn't.
I am downloading a song on my phone so I could transfer it over to this as we leave. And as I do this, I'm going to leave off with a couple things. First one is, it's not weakness to ask for help. It's the bravest thing you can do when life becomes too heavy.
Yeah.
Ask for help. Go to a brother, go to a sister, go to your mom, your dad, a friend, your kids. Sometimes if you feel there's a pressure between you and your kids, if you just talk to them about it, you might be surprised that they wanted to talk to you, but they're too scared to themselves. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with talking about your feelings. Nothing wrong with talking about why you're angry, why you're sad, why you feel alone, But if you ever get to the dark point where a few of us sounds like we were, no matter what, some people will say that is the most selfish thing you can ever do. I believe that because all you're caring about is yourself at that point. You're trying to get rid of all your problems by getting rid of yourself. You are loved no matter what. If you sit there and you think about it and you do that assessment of everything that's going on, you have your kids, everybody loves you, even if you feel they don't, they love you. Look at their actions. Now, if they're sitting there and showing you otherwise, that's a different story, but they're not. I promise you, if you look at the reality of it, like you're saying, they're not. They love you, they care for you, you're just going through something that you got to talk about. Don't hold it in. Talk about it. So let me get this song transferred over. We will be talking about some controversial things, like I said. Um, so just stay tuned. Let me get this moved over real quick. Sorry. I I wrote this. I didn't write this song, but I did create this song. Um, and I want to play it. And I challenge everybody to just stay on a little bit longer until this song is over. Just listen to the words, because it has a lot of meaning. It goes right on with this topic. And I've decided for the rest of the episodes, they'll have a song that goes along with the episode to play with it. So give me 1 second as I do
Don't
this.
get a copyright strike, brother.
I won't. I created it. At least I hope I don't, but you know, it's called Weight of the World. I am taking it to my computer now. And oh, let me uncover that. I didn't mean to cover your face up there, Jonathan. Oh,
No.
don't do it to me. Waiting for it to transfer. So I got to transfer it from my phone over to Teams, which is on OneDrive, and then I wait for it to load to my computer, and then I can load it to the streaming. Anybody have anything else they want to talk about before? You said you had a quote or something on your desk or on your whiteboard. I got something that's above my desk that basically along the lines of those times that I wasn't okay, I was okay. So now that I'm not okay, I know I'm okay. You know what I mean? You're going to get through it no matter what. It's literally above
Yeah.
my desk as a reminder. All
Yeah,
right.
it's funny because that kind of, one thing I have a daughter that's she has a lot of anxiety, and one thing I told her was, it's the folks that pretend like they're not crazy are the ones that are really crazy. Think about that, because everybody's got something that ain't right up there. Every single human.
I know I'm crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. I know I'm crazy. Let me see if that'll let me do it. No, it won't. All right. All right. So, Jonathan, Psycho Savannah, I appreciate your time, sir. I'm going to switch it over, but I have to switch the song really quick. Tanya had something to say. I'm sorry.
And I do feel like it's unfair at how much weight I couldn't imagine. My husband's amazing. And he holds his family together so good. I didn't have a father like that by no means. So I just wanted to make sure that that was understood how much, as a woman, men are appreciated, and I couldn't imagine. So just had to put that out there. I can sit here and give some advice and guidance, my experience, but not a man. And so, but he had mentioned fight or flight response for sure. I do think it's important to recognize the survival response. We're all in survival mode often. When often, to be honest with you, we don't have to be. That's a trauma response, to be honest. That's what, and yeah, we're paying bills, we're trying to go, but at the end of the day, we can't control. If we try to control what we can't control, we will lose control of what we can control. And so recognizing what we got and just keeping it pushing. But our body produces, the amygdala will produce cortisol, and that's a carcinogenic. So that's a stress response. It's just not worth it. So just for me, I have a higher power. I step 3. I turn my wheel of life over every day to higher power, and I keep it pushing.
Right.
So anyway, much appreciation to the men and much respect, because I couldn't imagine.
Well, on the other side too, women are appreciated. This isn't to say that women's health doesn't matter either, because
Right.
it does. But this is a stigma that I've personally had to deal with. So, all right. Anything else, Jonathan?
I just appreciate all of you guys taking the time out and giving your 2 cents, and hopefully somebody out there, even if it's just one person, feels like they need to reach out to somebody. You can reach out to Joe. You can reach out to me. I'm sure you can reach out to these other folks too. So doesn't matter if you know me or not.
Right. Yep. Psychotic Circus of Savannah on YouTube. I'm going to switch over. Again, I challenge everybody just to listen to the song. It has a lot of meaning. It goes right along with this episode. The song's going to play for a second. I got to switch it to another song, though. So, toodaloo, Jonathan, I'll hit you up here in a little bit. Thanks.
Sounds good, brother.
It's heavy, man. They don't see it. We're not allowed to feel, but sometimes it's too much.
They tell me man up, keep my tears inside, push my feelings down, let my pride decide. I clock in, clock out, in this cycle I'm trapped, providing for my family, but my soul's been zapped. The weight's on my shoulders, no room to share, but the silence, man, it's harder to bear. I'm supposed to protect, provide, and stay strong, but even steel bends when the pressure's on too long. They see the provider, not the cracks in the mask. A man's gotta carry it all, don't even ask. I treat her like a queen, I raise them right, but who's got my back when I'm losing the fight? I'm holding the weight of the world, it's pulling me down. Screaming inside, but I don't make a sound. I'm more than this mask, I'm more than this role, but the silence might swallow me whole. I'm breaking, I'm shaking, can't take it no more, but they don't see the man behind the closed door. The alarm clock screams, time to do it again. Punch the clock, feed the kids, hide the pain within. My son sees a hero, my wife sees a king, but the cracks in the mirror show a different thing. Can't ask for help, nah, that's weakness, bro. So I carry the weight where no one can go. The pressures of ice squeezing my chest, but I'll die with this burden before I confess. Every man's got his limit, but they don't wanna know. It's lonely in this fight when there's nowhere to go. Sometimes we break and sometimes it's too late. If only we could talk before we seal our fate. I'm holding the weight of the world, it's pulling me down. I'm screaming inside, but I don't make a sound. I'm more than this mask, I'm more than this role, but the silence might swallow me whole. I'm breaking, I'm shaking, can't take it no more, but they don't see the man behind the closed door. Let me speak, let me feel, let me cry just once. We're human too, not machines at the front. Before it's too late, before we fade away, give us a chance to heal, to say what we need to say. The weight of the world, it's heavy, man, and we all need a hand.
Let me speak, let me feel, let me cry just once. We're human too, not machines at the front. Before it's too late, before we fade away, give us a chance to heal, to say what we need to say. The weight of the world, it's heavy, man, and we all need a hand. It's heavy, man. They don't see it. We're not allowed to feel, but sometimes it's too much.
They tell me man up, keep my tears inside, push my feelings down, let my pride decide. I clock in, clock out, in this cycle I'm trapped, providing for my family, but my soul's been zapped. The weight's on my shoulders, no room to share, but the silence, man, it's harder to bear. I'm supposed to protect, provide, and stay strong, but even steel bends when the pressure's on too long. They see the provider, not the cracks in the mask. A man's gotta carry it all, don't even ask. I treat her like a queen, I raise them right, but But who's got my back when I'm losing the fight? I'm holding the weight of the world. It's pulling me down. Screaming inside, but I don't make a sound. I'm more than this mask. I'm more than this role. But the silence might swallow me whole. I'm breaking, I'm shaking. Can't take it no more. But they don't see the man behind the closed door. The alarm clock screams, time to do it again. Punch the clock, feed the kids, hide the pain within. My son sees a hero, my wife sees a king. But the cracks in the mirror show a different thing. Can't ask for help, nah, that's weakness, bro. So I carry the weight where no one can go. The pressures of ice, squeezing my chest. But I'll die with this burden before I confess. Every man's got his limit, but they don't wanna know. It's lonely in this fight when there's nowhere to go. Sometimes we break and sometimes it's too late. If only we could talk before we seal our fate. I'm holding the weight of the world. It's pulling me down. I'm screaming inside, but I don't make a sound. I'm more than this mask. I'm more than this role. But the silence might swallow me whole. I'm breaking, I'm shaking. Can't take it no more. But they don't see the man behind the closed door. Let me speak, let me feel, let me cry just once. We're human too, not machines at the front. Before it's too late, before we fade away, give us a chance to heal, to say what we need to say. The weight of the world, it's heavy, man, and we all need a hand.
Let me speak. Let me feel. Let me cry just once. We're human too, not machines at the front. Before it's too late, before we fade away, give us a chance to heal, to say what we need to say. The weight of the world, it's heavy, man, and we all need a hand.
It's heavy, man. They don't see it. We're not allowed to feel, but sometimes it's too much.
They tell me man up, keep my tears inside, push my feelings down, let my pride decide. I clock in, clock out, in this cycle I'm trapped, providing for my family, but my soul's been zapped. The weight's on my shoulders, no room to share, but the silence, man, it's harder to bear. I'm supposed to protect, provide, and stay strong, but even steel bends when the pressure's on.